college football episode today. We're going to be talking about Heisman favorites. We're going to be talking Natty Championship favorites, also some sleepers in both those categories as well.
I don't think he's going to be a tremendous NFL quarterback by any means. I think he could be like a Baker Mayfield type of quarterback at the end of the day, just like that kind of ceiling where he's good enough to maybe win you a game here or there, but he's also going to have lows where he's going to lose you a game here or there too.
He's got the skills. A lot of people aren't looking at him. He's only had 4 games last year, but about those 4 games, he was pretty impressive.
I honestly just think he's the best quarterback in college football right now. I got him as my number 1 overall pick next year in the NFL draft. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the WNP podcast. I am your host, Mike Mitchelson, and joining me today, as always, my co-host, Chase Crawshaw. Chase, how you doing today?
I'm doing swell. Thank you for asking. Been looking very forward to this show. Been talking about it for what feels like a month and a half now, just kind of amping up for it. So I'm ready to roll.
Yeah, it's exciting. And I don't know if anyone can tell just by the sound quality, but in a little bit of a different atmosphere here. And that's because got a special guest with us. This is the college episode, so I figured let's go with the person in my life that knows the most about college football, outside of me, of course, and that is my dad, Mike Sr. Mike Sr., welcome to the show. How you doing?
Hey, this is great. I appreciate being on the show today, and as always, go Dogs.
Exactly. It's going to be a tough act to follow up because cousin Derek was on just 3 weeks ago, something like that. And now another family member comes on. I think he did well. Hopefully you'll do even better. Not hard to do when Chase is on the show. You know, you're able to hype yourself up a bit when he's here.
Just the worst. You're literally just the worst.
Thank you. Well, like I said, college football episode today. We're going to be talking about Heisman favorites. We're going to be talking Natty Championship favorites. Also some sleepers in both those categories as well. And because we live in Michigan, got to talk a little bit about the Wolverines, maybe a little bit about the Spartans, even though not much is happening with them. Going to be looking at the Big Ten and the SEC a little bit deeper than the rest of the conferences. But I wanted to start this episode off with the brand new 2021 preseason AP Top 25 that came out just a couple days ago. Alabama sitting at top. Not really a surprise. Oklahoma sitting second. I think that's where it gets a little surprising for me, at least. Oklahoma didn't make the national championship last year. Didn't even make the playoffs last year. However, they come sitting at top 2. Chase, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think they should be a top 5 team at the least anyway. So it is what it is. I would still have Clemson as my number 2 team at the end of the day, especially with DJU, who I think is probably the best quarterback in college football right now. Him guiding Clemson, I think that would make a little more sense. But Spencer Rattler is looking for, that big junior year jump. Oklahoma's got a very strong team around him as well. So I can definitely understand it.
And DJU, who's that?
That's DJU, of course.
Can we get the last name, please?
DJ Ukulele.
No. DJ Owegalile. Come on. You gotta be prepared for this stuff, Jade. No, I'm kidding. But Mike Sr., Oklahoma, number 2. Were you shocked by this at all? Were you thinking that Georgia should have been the number 2 team? What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm thinking that a little surprised by Oklahoma being there, but I'm thinking Ohio State. Ohio State should have been number 2, in my opinion. The talent they still have coming back at the wide receivers and the quarterbacks they're stacked at. I'm just kind of surprised. I think Ohio State should have been there.
Yeah, that's definitely a fair point. I think really this season is headlined not only by Alabama, who got 47 first place votes, but headlined by turnover. You look at Alabama, they lost their quarterback, they lost their running back, they lost 2 wide receivers. You look at Clemson, they lost Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne. Ohio State loses Justin Fields. So much turnover in the top couple of teams, but also completely around the league. I think Alabama, arguably the most turnover. they had the guys I talked about. They even lost some offensive coordinators and coordinators overall with Steve Sarkisian heading over to Texas. And then they bring in Bill O'Brien, who, Chase, I know you're a big fan of. He's their new offensive coordinator coming over from the Houston Texans. With all of this turnover, like I've been saying, why are they still number one?
It's Bama at the end of the day. It doesn't matter. Everybody who's next man up at Bama has produced at pretty much every single time, every single year under Nick Saban's reign. So it really doesn't matter. They can have all 22 starters graduate, and if they win the national championship last year, they will be the number one team. It's because it just does not matter. Always, a top end recruiting class. Always these guys just sitting, waiting, developing, maturing, never being thrown into bad situations because nobody has played until they're truly ready. So when they do take that jump and when they're dumped, or thrust into the spotlight, they're just ready to go. It's just how Bama's operated for the last 10 years. So it really doesn't matter who's there or who's not.
And as a Bulldog fan, you know a lot about the SEC and Bama's dominance over your team and many other teams in the SEC. Why are you expecting the same old Bama? Are you expecting an ass whooping the next time you guys verse them?
Not happen. Kirby needs to learn how to finish those games. But as far as Alabama, Nick Saban, that's all there is to it. He keeps retooling over and over and again, and he's bringing those 5 stars in, and he's having them sit. And the great thing about that is that when they sit, they wait their turn, and they don't leave after their junior season. A lot of these coaches, they can't keep those 5 stars, and after their junior year, they're gone. So Nick Saban's able to do that, and he does a great job.
Now, I get a question with players now able to get compensated for, doing ads for companies or their likeness and jerseys and everything like that. Does that change what Bama has been so good at? Do players now think, I need to get on the field right away. I need to get my name out there. I need to get it known so that I can start making money right away? Or do you think we see a similar landscape where Alabama and other teams are able to keep their players and the transfer portal might not get as beefed up as some may think?
That's a good question. I think that what you're seeing out there is, there's a lot of guys that want to make that money right away. But I don't know if you've seen, I got to bring it in, the Dogs, JT Daniels. He just got hooked up with my favorite place, Zaxby's. And what he's doing is he's splitting the money with all the players on the team. So that's something to try and keep that team together, and it shows what a leader he is.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I did not see that.
That is cool. And real quick, before we move on, even, you're saying that guys might want to get in the field to get their name out more. I mean, I told you we wanted to talk about this, and I don't want to forget about him. Kool-Aid McKinstry, that's his kid name. He's a defensive back for Bama. He just signed an NIL deal today with Kool-Aid himself. So his nickname was Kool-Aid coming out of high school always, so he goes by Kool-Aid now, and he hasn't touched the field, and he has an NIL deal. So at the end of the day, even if you're not on the field, if you market yourself right, you can still get those deals.
Yeah, I think it's a little different with a name like Kool-Aid. And talk about Twitter.
What about Twitter?
How Kool-Aid he got.
Yeah, true, good call. I almost forgot about that. So Kool-Aid McKinstry and the Kool-Aid company, they switched Twitter handles. So now he is Kool-Aid on Twitter. He's just Kool-Aid. That's crazy to me.
Yeah, that's. I wonder if that was in their contract when he signed it.
Had to have been.
Yeah, that's crazy. All right, guys. Well, let's talk about some of the favorites. I think Alabama right now the favorite because they're preseason top 25's number 1. A lot of people would argue they are the absolute favorite. Spencer Rattler, he's the favorite for the Heisman. I want to know who you guys are putting your money on this season. Is it Alabama? Is it one of the top 5 teams not being Alabama? Or is it someone deep? We'll talk about sleepers as well, but I want to know your favorite right now. If you had to put your money on someone to win the national championship, who's it going to be?
So just kind of gut feeling told me when I was doing this. Gut feeling kept telling me Clemson. So you know what? I'll ride with Clemson. Bama is obviously a legitimate contender every single year at this point. But I do really like DJU as a quarterback. I think he's going to take a very large jump now that he's going to be able to really be on the field full time. Justin Ross is cleared to play. He's going to be ready to roll. And everyone knows he's an alpha receiver and was a very good college receiver before he went out with injury. So as long as he can bounce back they'll be strong. They have a talented enough running back group. The defense is fine at Clemson. It is weaker talent, but at the end of the day, they're so overwhelming on offense usually that they can usually, beat out that the fact that they have a bad defense, or they can overtake a defense like Bama's. So Clemson's just kind of what my gut was telling me.
Bulldogs fan? You got your Bulldogs winning it?
I got to go with the Dogs. They're set up for it. They've got a lot of returners coming back, a lot of talent. JT Daniels, he's got the skills. A lot of people aren't looking at him. He's only had 4 games last year, but those 4 games, he was pretty impressive. So I'm definitely Dogs, but the one thing you got to look at is just making sure that you can get away from the injuries. The injury bug comes if you guys don't got players to back them up, then who knows what could happen.
Well, I think that's the main question right now is who's JT Daniels throwing to? You're without your top 2 wide receivers. I know that you guys got some talent coming in, but what are we looking at?
Well, we've got, a couple guys in there. We got Rosemary Jack Saint. He just broke his ankle last year against Florida. He's back from that injury. He's starting to practice now. We got Zeus in the backfield with Cook. Those 2 backs. We also got Kendall Milton coming back. So we're solid in the backfield. We've got a good offensive line, which we're trying to piece together. But defensively, we've got quite a few starters coming back, and they're going to be strong.
So Oklahoma, like Georgia, they have their starting quarterback coming back with Spencer Rattler, and Georgia, JT Daniels, had a great end of the season, like you were mentioning. And that's one thing that Alabama, Clemson, and Ohio State can't say. They don't have their starters coming back. Mac Jones, Justin Fields, and Trevor Lawrence all moving on to the NFL. Chase is very confident in DJ Uiagalelei, and we saw him in 1 game action against Notre Dame in the last regular season. It was a loss. However, he looked good. He looked poised. He looked like a great starting quarterback. And Chase, I know you're not confident in the quarterbacks coming out this year to the point where you are happy for the Lions to pass on a quarterback just to wait until next year to hopefully get the likes of DJ Uiagalelei.
Yeah, so if the Lions end up picking up, or I should say when the Lions end up picking pretty high this year, I mean, defense is the way to go. This is an incredible defensive class, and the defense is supremely lacking. Matt Patricia was supposed to be this defensive-minded coach who couldn't build defense for his life, and now we're left with the pieces. So, wait on quarterback. There's a couple guys that, maybe I like as later round chances just to take a flyer on them, but to spend high draft capital on one of these quarterbacks, none of them seem like they can really be that guy at the NFL. There's a couple guys that are going to be good college quarterbacks. As we've seen so far, and we will see this season. But at the end of the day, their games are only going to go so high.
And talking about the quarterbacks, a lot of them coming out next year are favorites to win the Heisman. Spencer Rattler being your number 1 favorite. Sam Howell, he's in the mix. You've got Keaton Slovis in the mix as well, with Malik Willis getting a lot of love recently too. These are the favorites. What are your guys' favorites when it comes to the Heisman? Not your sleeper, not your Heisman sleeper, but a Heisman favorite for you guys.
So, at the end of the day, I do have Spencer Rattler as my number 1. I think he's better than you think he is.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to be a tremendous NFL quarterback by any means. I think he could be like a Baker Mayfield type of quarterback at the end of the day, just like that kind of ceiling where he's good enough to maybe win you a game here or there, but he's also going to have lows where he's going to lose you a game here or there too. But in terms of a college quarterback, he's got a solid arm. He's got enough rushing upside. The team's talented enough around him. If they end up going undefeated, it's going to be on the back of him. That'll be enough to get the Heisman campaign rolling. And it just seems like too easy of a pick right now for me, though.
Well, I hate to keep going back to the Dogs, but I gotta. JT Daniels. He's cerebral. He definitely, what the coaches say, when he was in 6th grade, he knew the plays and everything from high school. So he knows what he's doing. He knows how to lead. He's got a great arm, definitely NFL caliber arm. The only problem there might be there is the ability to get out of, move away from the pressure. Great pocket passer, strong, like I said, strong arm, but that knee's a little beat up, so we'll see where it takes him.
And I'll go right in between you guys. I'm going a mix of both quarterbacks, and that's Sam Howell out of UNC. I think Sam Howell's got that cerebral ability like you were talking with JT Daniels, but he's a little bit more agile, can move away from the pressure a little bit more like Spencer Rattler can. I honestly just think he's the best quarterback in college football right now. I got him as my number 1 overall pick next year in the NFL draft. I think he's tremendous. I honestly liked a lot of the players that came out of UNC last year, like the Javonte Williams, Michael Carter, De'Ami Brown, and Daz Newsome. But I think if they have any other quarterback in that system, they don't do as well and they don't get drafted as high. I have that much faith in Sam Howell. So he's going to be my favorite to win the Heisman right now. I would not be shocked if a guy like DJ Uiagalelei comes in. I know Bryce Young, he's getting a lot of love out of Alabama too. I don't know what to expect from him. And I'm surprised that he's so high in Heisman odds right now when no one really knows what to expect from him because we haven't seen him on the field. So do you guys have much faith in a guy like Bryce Young coming out, or even a guy like CJ Stroud over with Ohio State? Do you have faith in those guys who haven't seen on-field action to be able to fight for this Heisman?
I do actually have more faith in Bryce Young than CJ Stroud. Ohio State quarterbacks, I don't like harping on like a program's history, but at the end of the day, a system pretty often run at Ohio State, it isn't the most quarterback friendly in terms of developing, producing, and getting right to the next level and really putting on like Heisman candidacy type of seasons. I think Stroud's a good quarterback. I just don't know how much success he's necessarily going to have at Ohio State, especially with some of the guys behind him going to be pressuring him. It might cause a little bit of turmoil like internally. But Bryce Young, I think he's got some solid talent. I mean, we've seen quarterback after quarterback at Alabama. Just even if they're underwhelming talents, they still have success in the system. Like in AJ McCarron, he had success in the system. Underwhelming talent at the end of the day. Some of the next guys in line, like Tua and Mac Jones, of course, a little bit better. But I do think Bryce Young, I think he does have an ability, not necessarily like a Heisman type of guy, but someone who can actually, come in and be a very competent starter.
And you pay attention a lot to high school football players coming into college. So I'm sure you've got a little bit more insight on guys like Bryce Young coming in, a 5-star recruit. Do you have the confidence that he could fight for that Heisman?
I think they do. I would say it's pretty fair. With Nick Saban being there and him learning from Saban and how he instructs and teaches his players how to be the best, I really think that he's got a good opportunity to do it. Mac Jones, he did a great job. Last year was his only year playing, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
And he did a phenomenal job. The thing that I think about, and kind of going off real quick, is that some of these guys that were picked up last year in the NFL draft, that you look at some of these 5-star kids that come out and everybody's thinking 5-star. And then you've got Trey Lance, who is a 3-star and the 2000 rank of all the kids out of high school. So you never know who's going to come out. It could be a big surprise, but it's about learning the game and doing everything you can to better yourself.
Absolutely. Well, we talked a little bit about our favorites. We're going to get into our underdogs, but before we do that, I do want to talk about the hometown teams. Michigan Wolverines, they've struggled recently. A lot of people are wondering what's going to happen with Jim Harbaugh. Chase, you and I talked about it a little bit earlier on tonight, saying, unless he has a just horrific season, we think he's there to stay. Who are they going to get that's better than Jim Harbaugh right now? There's really not many options out there. So I want to know, what is Michigan going to do this year? Are they going to be able to crack into the top 25 at any point? If so, can they stay there towards the end of the season? What are your expectations as a Wolverine fan?
So this is Michigan's most talented quarterback room that they've had under Harbaugh. I think that's pretty safe to say. And that's been the biggest issue, is the quarterback game has just been horrendous since he's gotten here. They've never been able to figure it out. But there's a good chance that one of these 3 guys, and that is Cade McNamara, Alex Bowman, and J.J. McCarthy. McCarthy's unlikely to play as a true freshman. Cade McNamara is probably the starter, but Alex Bowman coming in as a transfer with some already proven success. It'd be very shocking if one of these guys isn't at least better than all the other Michigan quarterbacks that we've had in Harbaugh's tenure. So that should help his case. If the passing game can be on point, there's solid receiving options, then this team could be kind of better than expected. But if the passing game's where they are normally, or even just slightly better, I don't know. I don't know how much I like love the running game, especially now with Charbonnet out of town. Harbaugh's really gonna have to figure out this coaching room or this quarterback room. He's gonna have to coach a hell of a game. And I don't think Harbaugh's gonna lose his job, but he definitely should be on the hot seat after the season if they're not able to be successful.
And I know Charbonnet, when he left town, that hurt you a little bit, so
yeah,
that's tough. But Michigan, they did have a big turnover when it came to their coaching staff. 6 new faces in the coaching staff. How much does that change a team? How much can that do for a team that just won only 2 games last season? Again, it was a shortened season because of COVID and how late the Big Ten started. Some of the players opted out, but how big does a 6-coach personnel change a team overall? And what is your faith in the Michigan Wolverines?
It's going to make a big change. I mean, you imagine just being at your place of employment and all the management turns over on you. You got to learn a new regime and kind of adapt to what they're bringing to you. And you hope that they're strong enough to show you and take you to the next level. One of the things I did see I heard you guys talking about Michigan there, the running game. One of the things we may have missed is Donovan Edwards here from West Bloomfield. He was just the number 2 running back in the nation that Michigan ended up stealing from my dogs. But I think he's going to add a lot of strength to that running game for him, as long as that coaching staff can coach him up and teach him the right way.
Sounds good. Well, that's it for Michigan. If we go over to Michigan State, as a Michigan State alum, as a Spartan, I don't have much faith. We've upgraded the team, I think. I'm excited for Mel Tucker coming into his 2nd season, but I think overall we just don't have the talent that's there. We bring in the transfer quarterback who will be better than, what was it, Brian Lewerke last year, who was terrible, and then we had a couple other players coming as well. As a Spartan myself, I don't have much faith. However, Michigan does play in East Lansing this year. Definitely a game I'd want to go check out.
So I was looking at Michigan State's lines for their favorites to win, however many games supposed to win this year. They're only a favorite in 2 games.
Yeah.
So that's tough. It's going to take time for Mel Tucker to build what he wants to build there. It's a unique defense that he runs. It's just a unique kind of team in general that he's looking to assemble. So that takes time to build. But at the end of the day, what I think needs to happen, Peyton Thorne, he's only a sophomore, right?
Yeah, I think he's gonna be a redshirted sophomore.
See, what I would do at this point is I would start him, give him as long a leash as possible. If it looks like it's too much for him, then maybe you can kind of reel him back a little bit. But if he looks like he can at least kind of handle the pressure, regardless if he has a tough game or a couple bad stretches, just roll with him. Let him kind of be your quarterback of the future. So maybe by the time his redshirt senior year comes around, Mel Tucker's got a few guys in. This team is looking like a much better contender at that point.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they can do that, though, when Anthony Russo comes over as a grad transfer from Temple. That's the guy I was talking about. When you're a grad transfer, I mean, if Peyton Thorne's better, absolutely. But just looking from the outside in, seeing that a grad transfer comes over to Michigan State, it seemed like Mel Tucker saw enough from the quarterbacks he had last year and was willing to take a chance on a guy who only has 1 year left.
But at the same time, Alex Bowman came to Michigan out of A&M. He's a grad transfer, and he's pretty much not going to start. Nick McNamara is going to be their guy. So at the end of the day, if the dude's ready, if Thorne's ready, then you just let him roll. I don't care if he's a grad transfer or not.
Yeah, like I said, if Thorne is better, then I'm totally cool with that. But also, Cade McNamara, wasn't he a 5-star?
4 or 5, I can't remember.
And I think Peyton Thorne was a 3-star. So I just think the talent levels are very different. I know there's a lot of excitement around Anthony Russo overall, or at least there was on campus when he initially announced that he would be transferring. So any thoughts on Michigan State there?
Yeah, I think they got Mel Tucker's got them up and coming. If you look at this year, they're ranked 17th right now for the recruiting class, for this up and coming recruiting class, and they picked up a young quarterback out of St. John Bosco, which is a pretty powerhouse high school team that he's usually in the USA 25. He was ranked 14th, and you never know. With these kids, just keep getting a talent there. He's a 4-star. Look at Joey Burrow. He was, 23rd in his class, and look where he is today. So you just never know. It's how hard they want to work and how well they're coached.
Yeah, I'm also excited to see that coaching staff coming into its second year, ready to see if they are one of those coaching staffs that will elevate their players or if they will just perform to the extent of how talented the team is itself. So that'll definitely be exciting to see. But no other noticeable teams coming out of Michigan. Definitely not CMU. That's
fire up ships.
Definitely not the Northwood Trees, but
whatever.
All right, let's talk about some sleepers now. Here are teams that we're going to start with the National Championship. Teams that could have a chance to make it into the playoffs, and if they do, hey, maybe they're talented enough to get it done, beat the likes of your Alabamas, your Oklahomas, your Clemsons, your Ohio States, etc. So I want to hear a sleeper for the National Championship and why you think they could perform up to that level.
Senior, go for it.
I'll tell you this. That's a tough question. Did some thinking about that, and there's going to be everything it has to be a perfect storm. Let's say that. But I'm going to go with the Horned Frogs, TCU, and here's why. They got Max Duggan coming back as a quarterback. This is his third year. He definitely runs the ball well, scored 10 touchdowns last year rushing and 10 throwing. Then they got the three-headed monster in the backfield with our man Zach Evans.
Yeah.
And then defense is turning about 6 guys that are coming back. So I think they got a good opportunity. They lost a couple games last year. They ended up 6-4, but the ones they lost by within 7 points. They did get blown out by Oklahoma, but they're going to have to beat them to get there. So that's my sleeper. It might be there. We'll see what happens.
Hey, I really like Zach Evans. I'm excited to see what he can do this year. Storyline that you and I followed quite closely because obviously you were very excited about Georgia having the possibility of getting him and even at one point getting him, but then having to release him because of some outside factors and because of your excitement. I learned about it as well. So a guy that I know, and he was only behind Bijan Robinson in his class. So definitely a talented running back there. Surprisingly enough, that's a great hot take, a great sleeper because they're not in the top 25 AP poll that came out this preseason. So Chase, let's swing it over to you. Who is a team that you think has the possibility to jump up into the playoffs and really compete for a national championship?
Well, if you want to just take away from those top 5 teams at the end of the day, because those are the only ones that are getting any real betting odds. Iowa State is going to be a clear option here. If I could talk about 2 teams, I'll let you talk about yours too. Then let me come back really quick afterwards after I talk about Iowa State too, because it's hard for me to pick between these 2 that I have. But I mean, Iowa State, Brock Purdy, and the dude's looking for it's really a prove it year for him. The team is very talented around Breece Hall, Charlie Kolar, Xavier Hutchinson, and just a talented receiving group. The offensive line has a lot of experience. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know a ton about their defense, but I know that the offense has about every piece in play. If they run the Big Ten and they go undefeated, I mean, you can't keep them out of the top 4 at the end of the day.
Hey, I like Iowa State a lot. Brock Purdy, I mean, I think we talked about him ever since his freshman year, talking, man, this could be a kid that comes in and he's going to go in the first round with the likes of Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence. His past 2 years, his sophomore and junior year, not as great. He's looking for another step here in his senior season. If he takes that, definitely a scary team to watch out for. And like you mentioned, Breece Hall, very talented running back. The guy that you and I are both looking for if we end up with the first overall pick in our fantasy league. But I'm going to have to go with Indiana. Now, I hope I didn't take yours, but Indiana, I don't know if you guys know, they only lost 2 games last year. Their coach won Big Ten Coach of the Year. They're returning 17 of their 22 starters. And I have a ton of faith that Michael Penix Jr., their quarterback, is going to take that next step. A quarterback that, like Spencer Rattler, is a little bit more mobile, can do stuff on the ground, can get out of some hairy situations. So I think Indiana, they've got a great defense, a lot of returning starters. Last year in their 2 losses, they only lost by a combined 13 points. So, hey, it's going to be tough. You're going to have to go against the likes of Ohio State, Penn State to get there. But if there's a team that I want as a sleeper to make that run, it's going to be this Indiana team who, like I said, and I'll keep harping on it, returned so many starters from a great Cinderella story that they had last year.
Penix is an awesome college quarterback as well, so I can definitely get behind that pick.
Thank you. All right, let's go back to your second sleeper that you just did not want to choose between.
Yeah, because they were just so close, and like, it's got to be the U. Miami. I am a very, very strong Derek King believer. He has every tool that you see out of Heisman winning quarterbacks at the end of the day. He is a tremendous runner. He's the best runner on that team. He throws a nice ball. It's not necessarily like an overwhelmingly beautiful ball or incredibly strong ball, but it's a nice ball that gets delivered at the college ranks. The running game in that, system is always kind of whatever, but at the end of the day, it's all going to run through Derek King. So the running back group's not too worried about. I like Will Mallory. I think he's a good tight end who's going to take over Brevin Jordan pretty well. And then also, I don't want to forget, if Derek King isn't able to start for some reason, Tyler Van Dyke, he's a true freshman coming in. I think he's got some great talent from what I watched on film. So I think he could come in and surprise as a true freshman. And the real reason I really want to mention this Miami team is if they are going to be a national championship sleeper, that means they got to knock out Alabama week 1. If they knock out Alabama week 1, all hell breaks loose on this college football season. That will change everything.
There is so much fun to be had in week 1 with the likes of Georgia versus Clemson. You got Miami, Alabama. I know, I think it's Penn State versus Wisconsin week 1, too. A lot of really exciting games. But Senior, you wanted to say something real quick?
Yeah, I was thinking that even if Miami doesn't knock them off, if they could just stay close to them, and then the rest of the season run that table, I think that's a fair pick.
Right. Absolutely.
And I think that this is, I mentioned it, this is the season of turnover. You saw a lot of turnover in the top couple of teams. So this is really a season you could see those upsets. You could see the likes of Iowa State, who you mentioned, Cincinnati, who's getting a lot of love. They're in the top 8, sitting at 8 exactly.
Go Bearcats.
Hey, I'm excited for them. And I think once we have the playoff expansion, they're going to be a team that we're going to be seeing a lot more. A team that I really like that hasn't been mentioned, I don't see them being a sleeper team for the national championship, but a team that I really like the future of is Texas. And this was a team that has a lot of history. We're good at one point, but over the past couple of years, really haven't been able to get it done. They've got Bijan Robinson, who I think is the best running back in football right now. And that may surprise some people because I know a lot of people had Breece Hall being that guy. But they also bring in Alabama's offensive coordinator, Steve Sarkisian, who I think just by namesake, he's going to bring in a lot of recruits. So that's a team I'm looking forward to in the future. Not going to happen this year, but definitely a team I'm excited for.
Yeah, it's definitely, something to keep an eye on. Another team that we talked about kind of before the show, Coastal Carolina, they're not going to get in. At the end of the day, a group of 5 school is just not getting in with the current college football format. But if they go undefeated going into their bowl game, not surprised at all because they've got everything in play, especially for a group of 5 school. And Grayson McCall is a very solid college quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, I hate to do this. Jason, I mentioned a couple of different teams. You only got to mention TCU. Was there any other team you wanted to just talk about? Hey, this team could be exciting in the future. Or hell, if you had another team that you thought might be able to do something this year, anything like that?
I was looking at the Trojans, USC, and Slovis over there and see what he can do as far as putting up some numbers. Offensively, they're probably going to be pretty strong, but defensive-wise, not too sure about that. So you'd like to see somebody come out of the Pac-12 and do real well to kind of support that conference again, but I don't know. I don't know about that.
It seems like they're a long way off from that conference being that type of football again.
And I think that's a really good pick, too, because they do not play Oregon. They do not play, Washington. They don't play those top teams in the Pac-12 this year. One of the easiest schedules. So if they can get some blowouts, that could be a team that's in the conversation towards the end of the season. But that's going to do it for our sleeper teams. Let's now move into our sleeper Heisman candidates. These are guys that aren't in your top 5. They aren't your Spencer Rattlers, aren't your DJ Oigaliles, your Bryce Young, Sam Howells, etc. Senior, would you like to go first again?
Sure. I've got two actually. One that I was thinking about, but let me start with that one. His name's Kevin Harris. He's playing in the SEC. He's with the South Carolina Gamecocks.
Ooh,
Who used to be,
that?
I believe, was your team some time ago.
Go Cox.
Sophomore year, actually a redshirt freshman year, he had 1,138 yards rushing, 15 touchdowns, and that was on. Including 159 yards on in one receiving touchdown. So in his freshman year, he had 21 attempts at 179 on yards, so 8.5 a carry. And this last year, he was a little over 6 yards a carry. So playing in, obviously, you know how it is playing in the SEC. It's a tough conference there. So putting those kind of numbers up as a young man like that and on a team like that, you might be surprised to see what this kid can do. However, I did not choose him. I went right back to TCU. Max Duggan, definitely looking for big things. He's been on the Davey O'Brien Award watch list, which is the nation's top quarterback. Maxwell Award watch list, which is most outstanding player. And the reason I'm saying this is because if you remember back in 2014, Boykin, Tavon Boykin, I believe it was, he didn't come out and have his breakout year until his junior year. And you compare the two for the first 2 years, Boykin to Duggan, and Duggan's been ahead of Boykin's numbers throughout those first 2 years, and are expecting a big thing from him. You know, he's got the arm strength. He's got the three-headed monster in the backfield, so that can take some heat off of him as far as throwing the ball. And then also he runs well too. Like I said, he had 10 touchdowns rushing the ball. And real quick, I'll leave these two stats out there, and then I'll let it go. But last year they were 6-4, but they were at 1-3 at one point. In the last 5 games or last 6 games, they won 5 out of 6, and they went into Texas and ended up beating Texas in Austin 33-31, where he was 20 of 30 with 231 yards passing, 79 yards rushing. And then they beat number 15 Oklahoma State. He threw 265 and ran for 104. So I don't want to say I'm high on this guy, but I think he could possibly do something.
Yeah, and hey, the Heisman for the past couple of years, not last year, but for the years prior, it's always been a quarterback award. And when you have a quarterback that can do it through the air and on the ground, that's definitely a great choice there. Chase, let's go to you for your Heisman Sleeper. What are we thinking?
I got a list of 3. So hard to choose from. I'm not going to say all 3 because 3 is a little much, but I will narrow it down to 2. I will say one briefly and then go a little more on the one that I really believe. So I would be remiss if I didn't mention Tank Bigsby, Auburn running back, who is actually my number 1 running back in the 23 class, not Bijan Robinson. Yeah, I will declare that right now. A little crazy to think.
Yikes.
But
he was out of Georgia.
yeah, so at the end of the day, I think Tank Bigsby's just got everything. I mean, so does Bijan Robinson, don't get me wrong, but it's pretty close. But between the two, I just like a little more what I see from Bigsby. I think he's got just that next step. Him is just exploding on the college scene. You know, averaging 8.5, 9 yards a carry. He's not going to get a ton of receiving work because in the opposite system, the running backs don't get a lot of targets, but, he could easily lead the nation rushing this year. So Bigsby's someone I got in mind. But at the end of the day, my guy who I'm actually going to be putting money on here pretty soon, I got to do it, I keep forgetting, is De'Aaron King, quarterback out of Miami. I briefly mentioned when talking about him. He's got every tool that you want out of a Heisman winning type of quarterback. Last season, before he got injured, he threw for just under 2,700 yards, 23 touchdowns, 5 picks. When you get those type of numbers through the air, when you're kind of a dual threat kind of guy, that is fantastic. Last season on 130 attempts running too, he had 538 yards. Don't forget that in college, when you get sacked, that's a rushing attempt too. So I wish there was a way to figure out just his actual rushing attempts, but his average is probably more in that 6 to 7 range. That's a pretty good average. He ran for 14 touchdowns in 2018 back at Houston. He could easily run for double digits yet again. If he leads the nation in, just total touchdowns, passing, rushing, I would not be surprised.
Hey, I am one shocked that you have Tank Bigsby over Bijan. But 2, I would have thought you would have been sniffing some defense here in the Heisman. Maybe a little Kayvon Thibodeau, maybe a little Derek Stingley.
Thought about it.
Yeah, I think that if there is a year where a defensive player goes off and does something like that, it would be the likes of those 2, both super talented players. But Chase, let me tell you why Bijan is the number 1 sleeper Heisman candidate and the number 1 running back coming out in 2023. So,
Let's hear it.
first of all, Bijan, a little bit bigger than Tank Bigsby. Just a little bit, not much. But also, Bijan, last year, 900 total yards, and that is on just 101 touches. He had 900 total yards, so 9 yards per attempt, 8 yards per carry. So the receiving game was a little bit better. 6 total touchdowns, not 600 total touchdowns. That'd be a little crazy. But also, he had a phenomenal performance in the last couple games, including 180 yards, a touchdown on only 10 carries in the Alamo Bowl. So Bijan Robinson is the best running back in college football right now. And you said you like Tank Bigsby, and he's awesome. But when he had 138 attempts for only 834 yards, 6 yards per carry, and then Bijan comes in, 86 attempts, way less, 703 yards, 8.2 yards per average. He did everything that Tank Bigsby did with less touches. And once he finally got the true workload at the end of the season, he absolutely exploded. I'm putting all my money on him. I think that him being ranked 10th on CBS's Heisman odds is a joke. I think that he beats out everyone. I think he's that talented.
See, it is close. It's not like it's a far gap by any means. You guys are pretty damn close to me, and I think Bijan's got every tool you want out of a future bell cow type of back. But so does Tank Bigsby, and I just, for whatever reason, I don't know. I watched it too, and I just get a better gut feeling out of Tank Bigsby, and I like to trust my gut in these types of situations. But I definitely don't hate the pick at all. I think Bijan could be getting a lot more work than Tank will this year, because Auburn, I figured they're going to throw the ball a lot more this year than Texas is going to.
Hey, and I hate that I had to pick Bijan Robinson as my sleeper, because recently Bijan has started to get more love in the Heisman odds, but it's still just not enough for me. So that's why I had to come out, give Bijan Robinson my Heisman sleeper. Now, I want to talk to you, Senior. You are, like I said, very attuned to the high school players coming into college. You're very aware of Tank Bigsby being in the SEC. You know of Bijan Robinson, even though he's not in the division. You got to pick one. Who's better? And, don't side with me just because I'm your son. Side with me because I'm right.
Well, I think you both got good points. I think that it's going to come down to looking this year what happens, because both teams are going to be walking away from, or I should say, Texas isn't going to have Sam Ehlinger.
Yeah.
So who are they going to have? If they can't throw that ball, they're going to have to try and run it. And the big focus is maybe they stack the box like things happened in Georgia, being stacked in that box when we didn't have a quarterback. As far as Bijan Robinson, again, he did face teams like, I wanted to say SEC is dominant in defense, but how did Bijan Robinson do against West Virginia? Because they were ranked, if I'm not mistaken, as one of the number one or top defenses in the nation.
He had 12 attempts for 113 yards, average 9.4 yards a carry.
Okay, that is strong. That's huge. Tank Bigsby, I liked him a lot. I was disappointed we didn't get him. When I say we, the dogs, I was high on him. But now when we play against him, I want to crush him. But he is a great back. And at this point right now, just looking at numbers, I'd have to go off numbers, Bijan Robinson. However, it will be told this year who the better of the two backs is.
Absolutely. I think that for the rest of their college career, they're going to be compared to each other, no doubt. And I think Zach Evans comes in that conversation as well. And hopefully Kendall Milton comes into that conversation. As a Dogs fan, you'd tell me multiple times about Kendall Milton. And hey, the last time you raved about a guy this much, it was Zeus. And that didn't really work out too well. But Kendall Milton, what we saw on the field from him in his brief couple of stints in a couple of games, he looked talented. He looked like he was able to get around the defenders, able to really put on a show. So I would love if all four got into that conversation as being just true alpha running backs in the NFL, because I got 8 first overall picks in that draft for our Dynasty League.
It's ridiculous.
It's injuries. As long as they stay injury free, that's going to be huge. I know Nick Chubb was had his injuries and Gurley, but they made it to that next level, and there's still at least Chubb is still going strong. But I'd hate to see so much talent at this young age get injured. As long as they can stay fresh and give us some entertainment on the TV.
Absolutely. Well, that is it for our little preview. We talked about Heisman favorites and national championship favorites, as well as some sleepers for both. Went into a little bit of the Michigan teams, what we can expect from them. We're going to be talking more about college football coming up, but we do want to see some players on the field before we start making even more predictions on what's going to happen, because I feel like national championship and Heisman, the two biggest awards in college football, I feel like that's enough for right now. I don't know. I could be wrong. But yeah, that'll do it for the show. Anything you guys want to say to end it, anything can be about the college football season, can be about a team, can be about your experience tonight and how amazing I was and how poorly you guys did, anything like that?
I will talk nothing about you, but I will mention the third name that I want to mention for my Heisman Sleeper is Malik Willis. If he takes that jump, just look out. He's going to be a lot of fun. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, he's a guy that's getting a lot of hype right now. I know a lot of people think he's going to have a Trey Lance / Zach Wilson / Joe Burrow type of rise. So we'll see if he can do that.
And one final, go Dogs.
Knew it was coming.
Yeah, you knew it was coming. All right, well, that's going to do it for the show. We want to thank you for coming out. If you want to stay up to date with all that we do, you can follow us on Twitter at WNP Sports Pod. That's again at WNP Sports Pod. We do also have a Facebook and an Instagram page. Those links will be down in the description. You can check us out there. If you are on YouTube, if you could please give us a like, comment, subscribe, and ring the bell to turn on notifications. Let us know who you have winning the national championship and the Heisman. I would love to hear about that. And then if you're listening on a podcast platform, if you could please rate us 5 stars and give us a follow, we would really appreciate that. Thanks so much for stopping by. And as always, we're not professionals.